You're a big Chicago Bulls fan. What made you like the Bulls?
I'm a big Bulls fan because I started watching the Bulls when I was young. I was a Bulls fan originally because I was watching Jordan. And then Ben Gordon and Kirk Heinrich kind of pushed me into being a Bulls fan even more when I watched them hoop. Very ethical hoops, I like to call it. And then the D Rose situation kind of just tied me in, and I've been a Bulls fan ever since.
Do you love the Bulls or do you like them?
No, I love the Bulls. Even though our team kind of is not the greatest right now, I'm still a big Bulls fan. Haven't watched too many games this season. Last year broke my heart. But I'll pick it back up. But I'll always be a Bulls fan through and through.
Did you become a Bulls fan after watching MJ dominate the 90s?
Yeah, I did. That was part of the reason why I became a Bulls fan. I was watching Jordan. All of my siblings were Kobe fans, and I kind of just drew a line on the sand. It was kind of like, yeah, Kobe's great, but I'll never be a Lakers fan. And I kind of went towards that organization. The Bulls is just, the colors, the pageantry, and the players that they've had historically just kind of fit the mold of like what I liked in basketball.
On January 4th, 2025, the Bulls informed D-Rose, also known as Derrick Rose, that his jersey will be retired during the 2025-2026 season. What did D-Rose mean to you?
D Rose meant a lot to me because that was when I was really into basketball heavily. When he came to Chicago, it kind of changed the landscape for us, and we were almost instantly like a contender with D Rose at the helm. He was kind of embodiment of like enjoying basketball. Like when I was growing up watching basketball, there were two players that I'll say stood out for me of how they played that I enjoyed watching all the time. It was D Rose and Russell Westbrook. Both of them were very explosive. They played the point guard position the way I enjoyed watching the point guard position be played. And they were dominant with fast dunks, driving the lane, quick. That's the kind of point guard play I enjoy watching.
What did D-Rose mean to the people of Chicago?
He meant hope. From all I've seen, I'm not born in Chicago, so I can't speak for the people of Chicago, but from the interviews and everything I've seen people in Chicago say, Derrick Rose meant hope that there's opportunity for somebody coming out of Chicago, out of the, lower poverty areas, mid-low class areas of Chicago, that there's still an opportunity for you to kind of reach the mountaintop of athletics, becoming that person that represents the city and doing it at the highest level.
Do you feel like D Rose had an impact on the individuals in your household? Not your friends, but just individuals that were your siblings.
Yeah, for at least I'll say for a couple of my siblings, at least my brother, when D Rose got drafted, he's a big basketball fan. I was a basketball fan, but I was kind of just like I'll say fair weather fan. I watched the games that I liked, but I wasn't big onto watching basketball. But once D Rose came into the league, I watched the NBA more because previously I was just watching college like consistently. I was a Syracuse fan, so I was watching Johnny Flynn, all of those players over the time of Syracuse. But then when D Rose came onto the Bulls, it was kind of like I didn't just watch a few games there. I'd watch the whole season. I'd actually go into the playoffs. So it gave me an opportunity to bond with my brother who enjoyed basketball and kind of speak on basketball. Even to this day, it's kind of, he can ask me questions about the organization and I'll know because I'm in tune with the team. Even though I don't watch every game, but it's like, I have that team that I follow and what's going on with them.
Stephen Curry impacted the game by revolutionizing three-pointers. How do you feel like D Rose revolutionized the game?
I feel like D Rose revolutionized the game because it became a position of, before, like outside of LeBron, you respected the younger players more coming into D Rose, the youngest MVP winner at the time. And it's kind of like, the way he was playing basketball is it's nothing like we've seen before. There was only one other player that hooped the way Derrick Rose hooped, and that was Russell Westbrook. Very explosive, can drive the lane quick. And then they represented their city. A lot of the players had gimmicks or were going into this thing of being a basketball player and having the position of like having to be the face and not just hoop. Besides, Kevin Durant, but when you looked at Derrick Rose around those times, he was just a hooper. He hooped. He didn't say too much, but as you watched basketball, his game spoke for itself.
I don't know if you remember, but when I was back in high school, I remember a D Rose Adidas commercial when D Rose was running up in a coliseum full speed and with a basketball, and I just thought that was dope. Like, man, it just stood out to me. Like running full speed with a basketball at Coliseum. It impacted me because at the time it's just like I was good in basketball, but I wasn't the best version of what I could be. So when I seen that commercial of dude running a full speed, bouncing up a ball, I'm thinking, man, like, can I get my handles up like that? So I'm just like, man. And he's the GOAT at the time. So I'm seeing this commercial. I'm like, yo, man, I could get handles just like that. So upon seeing that commercial, I started doing this once a week or every other week or every other day, I would say, where I took a basketball and I'm just dribbling it, pounding it like full speed, like whether the basketball just like gets away from my handle or whatever. But I'm trying, I'm pounding it. So um that's the impact that D Rose had on me. Do you feel like D Rose had such an impact on you?
Yes and no. I never pursued to actually play basketball. I wasn't really the greatest at it. D Rose had an impact on me for the sport itself because he made me love the game.
And by the way, I'm sorry to cut you off, but are you recognizing the commercial I'm having?
No, I don't really recognize the commercial you're having. I was trying to paint a picture of what it was, but I kind of drew a blank.
It's like he's at a Coliseum and he's just like, yo, just running full speed with the Bulls. Not.
Did he have on the basketball jersey or he had like the warm up gear?
I can't remember, but it's just like he's just back in the day with the Romans, yeah, how they used to throw individuals in the Coliseum and had lions, go after them. It was kind of similar.
So it's like I think I know what you're talking about, but I don't remember the commercial vividly. It was like it was the first the first I think it was the first D Rose shoe commercial, and he was doing the Coliseum. Then he have like the El Toro with the red in the Coliseum. I kind of remember it, but I don't vividly remember it.
Bro, dude just running full speed. And I'm seeing this, I'm like, yo, this is at a time where I'm not even knowing who this guy is. I'm like, yo, someone could run this speed. And I'm like, yo, bet basketball outside every day. That's the mindset that's just the subliminal message I took. I'm like, yo, bet every day, this is where I'm gonna be. I went to a quiet spot and I'm just like running full speed, dribbling. Ever since I seen that commercial, and it's just like, and I didn't know who Derrick Rose was. So it's just like, man, that's just the impact he had on me at a young age. I'm like, man, like, now looking back, I'm like, man, this dude did have an impact on me. Like, cause I was doing this, the hard part was finding a spot to go to do that. Cause back in the day, it was just like, man, like, where are you gonna find a lanky spot to just dribble, full speed, up and down, so, now, and that was me. So do you feel like D Rose had that form of impact on you and your friends growing up?
Not me. I know other friends of mine that pursued basketball that did. The impact he had for me is just kind of loving the game even more. Even after his injury and just kind of his perseverance to go beyond that point. It made me want to watch his career down the line up until he retired. I've always been a D Rose fan and still am to today. If he was to come out of retirement, I'd still root for D Rose. So I'll give him that. I have friends who kind of try to imitate their game behind him. After watching him, they did what they could, but there'll only be one D Rose.
As men, we smile, laugh, and beef, but there's moments where we're united. And I feel like hearing the Chicago Bulls discussing on retiring his jersey is one of those moments where men was united. Do you feel like that's one of the moments where men worldwide are going to be united? Even if it's not men worldwide, just men in the U.S., where upon hearing that old boy's going to get his jersey retired, that is going to just unite men for a brief moment.
I'd hope so. I know D Rose has some troubles in his career that people are unforgiving for. I feel like a lot of people who are observers of the sport have a lot of respect for D Rose. I feel like that moment it kind of encapsulates being an NBA star and going through the ups and downs of being an NBA star and still remaining relevant. He got injured, tore meniscus, ACL, both his legs, and still continued to thrive in the NBA up until this point, just finishing last year. So it kind of resonates for a lot of people who hoop to kind of, don't let that one setback stop you from chasing that dream that you have of hooping every day that you can.
Do you remember what you were doing each of the times D Rose got injured?
I don't remember each of the time. I remember the first time he got injured, first round of the playoffs. I was watching it with my brother and was talking smack and he ended up getting hurt and I was just kind of doomed that our season basically might be over. And it was like a Saturday. So, dealing with that on a Saturday at a young age, you're like, all right, man, the game's over. He got hurt, kind of move on. But then it's like, you only have one day to really talk about it before you get to school and have to hear everyone else talk about it, about your team. So, it was devastating because I felt like it was our year, but, the first one hurt the most. The second one, I was hopeful like he'll bounce back and, he didn't really bounce back the way I expected throughout the season. So I wasn't, holding my breath to expect, D Rose to come back into 100% form like he was before. Once he got hurt again the second time, it was just kind of like I felt for him. I just hope the best for him because, you hate to see talent die out like that, NBA has a history of losing players that could have great careers just sold off injury, like Brandon Roy, to name one, and Jay Williams and stuff like that, Stuff like that's unfortunate for the sport, but it happened.
How was your reaction to each of those three injuries that D Rose faced?
Yeah, the first one I was devastated solely because of being a fan and what it meant for our season. The second one, I just kind of felt like that was it for him because it was the opposite knee. And then the third one, after seeing one of your prominent players get hurt so much, you kind of accept that that person might just be injury prone. It's like the situation of like, I never had experienced this, but the kid who watches and realizes like their dad is not the superhero that they always thought he could. He can't do everything you expect him to do, and they just fell short sometimes.
So D Rose, he was very special, and what I mean by that is, he kind of had that LeBron vibe in the sense that like you get so much love from your hometown city that they draft you, that your city drafts you, and the only other person that I could think of that was kind of similar to LeBron was D Rose. Surprisingly, a lot of people don't know that other than D Rose, again, it's you could be drafted number one, but it's your home team, the city that you're from, drafting you. The only other people other than LeBron and D Rose that I could think of would be DeAndre Ayton. A lot of people don't know this, but DeAndre Ayton, he's from Barbados, but he grew up in Arizona, went to high school in Arizona, went to college in Arizona, and got drafted by the Phoenix Suns. So, how do you feel about that rare ability to be drafted by a team from your city? Like you're born from the city, you grew up in the city, and you get drafted by the team from your city.
I feel like there's a lot that can come out of it. I'm a big football fan, so I can speak on it on how it affected some athletes in the NFL side as well. Chase Young got drafted by the Commander. He went to high school up the street in DC, and you can see what the expectations were for him being taken by the hometown and being better than kind of what he showed when he played. Being drafted from your hometown, it's a good and a bad, because the good is you have that support system. Everyone's going to love you because you're from the base, you're from the house. But then it's also the distractions that come with being at home. You have all those people that, probably went to school with you, wanted to come to games, and you're in the city and they want to see you and things of that nature. And it's hard to kind of avoid those distractions that just come naturally from being at the crib. The biggest benefit is you do always get that easily or surround supporting because they saw you grow up. Imagine you played Pop Warner in Atlanta, and then you get drafted by the Hawks. You went to UGA. You know what I'm saying? You come back home and you're playing professional sports in Atlanta. Everyone from Atlanta gonna love you. It's like, imagine if Anthony Edwards, got traded to the Hawks. He would do numbers in Atlanta because the city love him. They love how thorough of Atlanta he is. He went to UGA. He's from Atlanta. The only missing piece is him being on the Hawks. So, it comes with the territory. You get the benefit of having that extra support, but then you also have the negative side of having the distractions of everyone that knows you being so close to you in that prominent part of your life.
Who do you feel like is the best point guard to you?
Of all time?
To you?
Of all time, or just now?
Hmm. Good question. Well, of all time, and then to you.
So the best point guard of all time is Magic. No question, if ands or buts about it. That's the greatest point guard of all time. But I didn't get to watch Magic play live in time, so I'm just going off of highlights and games I've watched on ESPN Classic. The best point guard that I've watched play with my own two eyes, CP3. It's nobody that's a facilitator like CP3. In the beginnings of his career, playing on the Hornets, he made David West become a superstar, and nobody heard of David West again after he left the Hornets. That's why I would say he would be the best that I've seen play, like with my own two eyes and like live. And then right now, the best point guard to me, it's tough to say. I don't watch too many games. The ones I do watch, I love Trey. De'Aaron Fox is okay when he's not having coach issues, but I'll say right now, to me, Trae Young doesn't get enough credit for being one of the best guards in the league.
Do you feel like Derrick Rose would have been potentially greater than CP3 if his career would have been?
I don't know. I would say no, solely because of, in comparison, just what CP3 is in comparison to what Derrick Rose is. CP3 is smaller. He's more facilitator. Derrick Rose would have been more ball dominant. I would say I would see Derrick Rose be more on the Russell Westbrook trajectory. Like, he'll have a lot of highs, but then it will be settled with a lot of lows. Not because of injury, just because of how the game changed over time. Derrick Rose wasn't known for being a shooter. He was known for being a slasher that can get through the paint and score. So I can't really see him being better than CP3 because of where CP3 played. CP3 played the game where the point guard was meant to be the facilitator. Derrick Rose in that era was more of the point guard needed to be more of a slasher. And then now the point guard is more slash facilitator, but they are dropping buckets more than I feel like the point guard needs to. So I wouldn't see his trajectory just because of where the time of the sport is to be better than CP3.
Me personally, I feel like there's the greatest player ever, and then there's the best player ever. So since we're talking point guards, me personally, I feel like Magic Johnson was the greatest point guard ever. But I feel like, it's up to that individual to describe who they feel like their best version of a point guard to them is. So to me, I feel like Allen Iverson was the best point guard ever. So to me, I feel like if Derrick Rose career would have prevailed, that he would have been the best point guard ever. But unfortunately, he had injury, that stopped his career short. So do you feel like Derrick Rose, to me, do you feel like Derrick Rose's career would have been greater than Allen Iverson's career if his career would have been proved?
Wise, yes. Wise, no. I say it's tough to put them two in the same space because AI is like, it's like a monolith to NBA culture. It's like the significant figure that you can't really, as much as people try to put other players in his box of his impact to the game, there's never going to be another AI. We don't get the personality and the hoops of LeBron James without AI. You don't get the handles of Darren Fox and Steph Curry without AI. Even though Tim Hardaway, was the original man with the handles, but you don't get the shiftiness of Kyrie and those without AI. And also AI, he played the one, but he really was a two. He really was a two, but he played the one because of the team structure. But he's the one person that is like, he has a weird space in history of like, he might not end up down the line having the greatest numbers, but influence and impact kind of carries his legacy forever. So you'll always be remembered as. It's like similar to Yao Ming. If you look at Yao Ming, his numbers aren't that great. Dwight Howard has better numbers than Yao Ming, but it's Yao Ming. So it's kind of like he stands the test of time because there's historical presence to what he's done for the league.
It's funny you said that because there's times I look back at Allen Iverson's numbers and I'm like, yo, like this guy wouldn't get love in this generation, but it's just like, back in that day, like he was doing his thing, so it's just like he did make a name for himself, so that explains why he gets so much notice and recognition.
Yeah, and it's also the timing thing if you really think about it. Players are playing longer down now than when he played. A 15-year career was great back then. KD is what, 30 some years old, 30 over 35 years old. LeBron done played for almost 20 years. So it's a different day and age. I feel like if Allen Iverson was kind of levied the opportunity to play longer, his numbers would look better than, most would expect if you look back at it in hindsight.
My favorite player is Tim Duncan. It's a tie between Tim Duncan and Manu Ginobili, but there's times I favor Tim Duncan. But Tim Duncan, as much love as I have for him, he is a boring dude. But there's just something about Derrick Rose in the sense of he was a quiet dude, but just had the whole city behind him, which doesn't make sense to me because Tim Duncan was a quiet dude, and it's just like how come San Antonio didn't show him this amount of love? So it's like, man, like I don't know if you remember this, but there was an All Star game. Well, like I guess a pre-session where like LeBron James, Dwight Howard, and D Rose. It's like they were being risen to the stage, and Dwight Howard and LeBron were getting hyped, and D Rose was just looking at them like, I guess, like he just had that face expression, like whatever. But somehow Derrick Rose, you know, I wouldn't say I wouldn't consider him boring, but it's like, he just, to me, he gives off that vibe. But to others out there in the nation, they love him. So what would how would you categorize individuals who are boring or who are somewhat boring, but they get loved?
What the new generation of kids say nowadays? He had the aura that Tim Duncan did. Tim Duncan, first of all, it's all about the market and being marketable. Tim Duncan wasn't marketable. He played ethical hoops. That's why it's called. What's his nickname? The Big Foundation, Fundamental. The Big Fundamental, right? Derrick Rose was basically the chosen one. He played in Chicago, where Jordan played. You're gonna be market. You go, any player go to Chicago and they hoop, they're gonna always be like, oh, he's a star because he's Chicago, the home of Michael Jordan. Tim Duncan played in San Antonio. I can't name anything that comes out of San Antonio that would make me want to go to San Antonio to be a San Antonio Spurs fan. But I can name something that come out of Chicago that make me want to move to Chicago and be a Chicago Bulls fan. And people gravitated towards Derrick Rose, even though he's being quiet. Because if you look at that one scenario you brought up about Dwight Howard and LeBron James, if you look at back in retrospect now as an adult, and you go back and watch that video, LeBron and Dwight looked very corny in comparison to Derrick Rose. Just looked like he was all about business. And that's what the All-Star game was supposed to be about. Like now it's a laughing stock, but back then, players took it seriously and performed well in the All-Star game. I think that era was where the shift became to the All-Star game just being like a friendly match instead of it being, hey, like I'm playing in this conference and I'm here to show that our conference has the better players than yours.
D Rose brothers, they had a major impact on him getting to the league that a lot of people don't know about. basically, I think I read that when they figured out that he had that type of talent, that they made sure that he stayed out of any type of trouble. So, do you feel like if they didn't look out for him, that D Rose's life would have turned into a life of crime and trouble?
Um, there's a possibility. He did grow up in Southside Chicago. From what I've seen, he was around a lot of gangs and stuff too from his older pictures. So it's possible. A lot of people that grew up in Chicago, Southside around that time didn't get the best upbringing and never turned out to be the best of the opportunity. It's possible, but we'll never 100% know. I'll say this: a lot of times when you have talent and you're an athlete, those individuals that are in that life that could turn to crime typically always look out for you because they don't ever want you to, not be that person that you're supposed to be when you're gifted with certain talents. Solely because they get the opportunity to say, I looked out for so and so. Like I said, his brothers looked out for them, so they get that pride in knowing that, my brother made it to the league because I didn't let him stray from that path of using the gifts God gave him to kind of propel, our community and our family as a whole.
Were you watching Derrick Rose when he was at Samoa? Do you remember watching D Rose when he was at Samoan Academy?
I didn't watch Derrick Rose in high school. I ended up watching that school after Derrick Rose when Jabari Parker was there, but I didn't watch him in high school. I saw highlights, but I didn't really keep up.
Do you remember watching D Rose when he was at Memphis with Coach Calipari?
Yeah, I watched him at Memphis with Coach Calipari, and I knew he would be a star. Actually, a lot of, I won't say a lot, at least a few Bulls fans that I knew, we were scared that he would come to the Bulls because of what happened to Jay Williams. We felt like we was cursed at the one. Every one we've gotten since Jay Williams always ended up getting hurt. So we kind of wanted Michael Beasley just for the fact that he wasn't the one, and he hopefully wouldn't get hurt. But I did watch him at Memphis. Knew he would be a trailblazer and top pick just from watching him in college. It was him and Michael Beasley. Michael Beasley is a bucket, always has been, still is a bucket. But yeah, I did watch him at Memphis.
What are a couple of lessons that you could learn from D Rose's career?
Perseverance. Not giving up. A lot of times we get injuries. I myself fall victim to this. I got hurt and I kind of just gave up on the sport, but I don't know where I would have been if I continue to rehab and continue to try to get back on the field and get another opportunity. So it's perseverance, you can either die where you are or you can get back up and give it another shot to keep going. Having 3 major knee injuries and having a lengthy career the way he did and still being able to provide for his family is a mission that a lot wish they could accomplish, and he's the one that did.
Ken, thank you for this interview.